Hey folks, Reviewy McReviewface coming back at you. Today we're going to talk real money. Canadian Tire money. Yeah, so today I want to talk to you about Canadian Tire money. So for those of you who aren't from Canada, you may not be familiar with this. Canadian Tire is kind of an all-in-one department slash automotive slash housewares slash tools store. You can find one basically in every mid to large size Canadian city. It's an icon, right? And part of what makes Canadian Tire so iconic is that you could earn Canadian Tire money when you shop there. So every time you'd make a purchase, you would get back a small amount of that purchase in a paper actual bill. So it actually it felt like real money. And you could use that coupon anytime you shopped at Canadian Tire again. So on the coupon was a friendly looking guy named Sandy McTire. So obviously Reviewy McReviewface has got to talk about Sandy McTire. These coupons started coming out in about the 1950s and went through until last year when the Canadian Tire Company decided to switch to a virtual app to collect Canadian Tire money. Myself, I have a long appreciation of Canadian Tire money. Obviously, as a kid, everybody had some tucked into the glove box of their parents' car. You'd give it to kids to use as play money. And yeah, every once in a while, somebody would save up a whole ton of it and go and buy a canoe. For myself, back in the early 2000s, I raised a bunch of Canadian Tire money with the express purpose of purchasing the CFL Calgary Stampeders. Obviously, came nowhere near close to actually earning enough money for that. So we donated all of the Canadian Tire money we raised to the Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter. So that was about $100, which they used for supplies for the shelter. So that was great. And then from there, I've just kind of been collecting it myself, sticking it away in a box somewhere until pandemic hit. And which point, everybody looks for absolutely new things to do during pandemic because you're bored at home. So I started going through my Canadian Tire collection. I started purchasing some other bills on eBay, and I've built it up now to where I have $60.66 in Canadian Tire money. Those of you of my age and younger may question the 6 cents. We'll get to that. So I built up a decent little collection, and then I happened upon this article from McLean saying, hey, you should check. Some of your Canadian Tire money could be worth thousands. And I thought, it's not going to happen, but it might be a fun video to take a look at my Canadian Tire money collection and check to see the values based on this. Now, this is the Canadian Tire Numismatic Catalog. Numismatic. From 2019. And this is put out by the Canadian Tire Collectors Club. Yes, there is such a thing. Yeah, this is a neat little value guide that we're going to take a look through and see what the values of my Canadian Tire money are. Now, something to keep in mind when you do values with something like a catalog like this is that it's really neat to go through and see, okay, that if you have one of these early 1958 issue bills, for a 5-cent one, that is in uncirculated mint condition, you could be sitting on $500 for a single Canadian Tire bill. That's not going to happen. Any Canadian Tire money you have probably is not uncirculated perfect condition. It's going to be crumpled and wrinkled and used. So you're not getting there. B, that's great. Let's say you do have this bill and it's worth $500. It's worth $500. It's supply and demand. It's the supposed value versus actually what you can get for it, right? Big difference. So we're going to take a look at this numismatic catalog. Let's get into the Canadian Tire money. My Canadian Tire money for the longest time was just, again, shoved in the console of my car. So, it was just kind of wherever. And then I decided, once I started building this collection up a bit, I'm like, I'll put it into a little box. So I used I think it was a box that an old phone came in, which was good enough for then. But then as my collection built and it outgrew the box, I thought I need to get myself something a little more special. And I thought there's no better place to keep your Canadian Tire money than in a Canadian Tire store. That's right. So I built a tiny little Canadian Tire store that hinged lid. And that's where I keep all of my Canadian Tire money, is in this Canadian Tire store box. So yeah, it's got the little red shopping cart on the corner there and a little delivery bay. So there is all of my Canadian Tire money kept in here. Flip that lid open. And here's where when you may have been confused and you said, okay, you've got $60.66. You probably, for most people, you've only seen 5-cent bills as the lowest denomination. So I do have a couple of these lovely 3-cent bills. Now, these are, they don't have a year printed on the back, so we'll have to check the catalog to see when they were printed. But they did stop printing them, not too, quite a while back. Because honestly, 3 cents is just a weird denomination. There are weirder denominations. I think what most people are used to are the 5-cent, the 10-cent, the 25, the 50, the $1, maybe even the $2 bills. These are the ones that we're familiar with. You may not be familiar with the 1 cent, 2 cent, 3 cent, 4 cent, 15 cent, 20, 35 cent, all kinds of really weird denominations. I don't know why they did it this way. I can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 breakdown. I really don't get the 15, the 35, the 20. You could just give them 2 10s. I don't get it. But that's part of the appeal of Canadian Tire, is it is a little bit wacky. So, with that in mind, let's get into some of this. So, let's go through, first of all, my 3-cent bills. As you can see, I don't have a ton of the 3-cent bills, but I've got a good chunk of them. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at some, I think this is the oldest of the 3-cent bills that I have right here. So this one, yeah, it looks like it's a fairly old bill. You can see it's got a bit of staining, so it's definitely not in great condition. The corners are okay. No date on this one. So we're going to have to take a look and see if we can find a match. If we go to 1962, we're starting to see some similarities, except you notice here that instead of Sandy McTire, it's got the wheel and the coin. So this is not the right area. We need to get past the wheel and coin guys into the Sandy McTires. So what we're looking for here to differentiate this from other years is red serial numbers appear twice on the back of each side of the tested proven product seal. That seems to be what we have here. Compare that to the 74s, and there's the difference, is the logo between the Canadian Tire logo and the test and proven product. So this right here is a 1961 3-cent bill. So if we take a look, 1961 3-cent bills, right there, anywhere between $2 and $35 for this one particular bill. This one could be worth 35 bucks. It ain't. It's got a stain. It's got some discoloration on the back. This one, I would say, is probably fair to very fair compare. So that would probably be $2 to $8. But still, $2 to $8 just for that one bill. That's not so bad. And then we can also see here that there were 10 million of these printed. 10 million 3-cent bills in 1961. I'm sure a lot of them are long gone by now. So we've got a couple of those. We've got a couple of 3-cent bills from that era. So we're assuming these ones from the 60s are worth, $2 to $8 each. Not bad. Looks like everything else I've got here in 3-cent bills is from 74. And we're looking values. I mean, most of these are not in the best shape, especially this one. Some of them are in okay shape. This one's actually in pretty good shape. That one might even be very fair to extremely fair. If that's true, an AN sequence could be $3 to $5. Let's get into now the bulk of the collection, and that is the 5-cent bills. I've got over 100 5-cent bills here, and obviously we've got everything from our very recent, so this is, if you look at the year on here, 2014. So we've got from 2014 all the way back to these nice early ones from the Olympiad year, which I believe, if we look in the catalog here, 1976, year of the Montreal Olympics. There were 3 million of them printed, and in the fair condition they're in, worth $1 a piece. So the next bill I have in the series, a couple of 1974 releases. The squared off box around the cent, Canadian Tire logo on the back, 5-cent. There were 10 million of them printed, and it's in fair condition. It's worth $2. $2, not bad. These other ones, these TN, these only worth 50 cents. Whereas the QN, 10 million of those printed, but again, another $1. So that's all fine and good. So we've got some of these older 5-cent bills that between them are going to be worth 50 cents to $2. Again, nothing's in spectacular condition, so nothing's going to be worth a ton of money. But then we get into what I think most people have, and that would be just what looks like your more modern Canadian Tire money, right? So we've got Sandy on the other side of the bill, right? If we compare that to the older bills where Sandy's on the left, here we've got Sandy starting to be more on the right. So if we look for bills with Sandy on the right, are basically worthless unless they're in extremely fair condition. When they're crinkled like this one here, they are worth exactly what it says. They are worth 5 cents. And then the same thing here when we get to the modern Canadian Tire money. This is I don't know if you can read that or not, 1992 is worth exactly 5 cents unless it gets to extremely fair condition. We also have a ton of 10-cent bills. And again, a lot of these Sandy on the right bills aren't going to be worth much. So we're just going to skip all of the right-hand Sandys because we basically know that nothing in there is going to be all that unusual. The oldest one I have, is an 89. In extremely fair condition, it's worth $1. When somebody writes $2.20 on the edge of it, obviously, that one's no longer in extremely fair condition. Looks like we're 87 with these ones. So here's an 87, here's an 85. There's some differences. One says only at Canadian Tire stores, one says at Canadian Tire stores. One is missing the president's signature. In the condition these are in, they are worth exactly 10 cents. Now, one thing to note here, I've got an odd one. It's an 85 that's printed with bigger font than the rest. Everything else is small font. Well, that one actually is worth a bit of money, wouldn't you know? That is a $10 to $15 bill. All right, that's not so shabby, is it? Then we get into the slightly older from there. So we've got two of these 10-cent Olympic year ones, and they're worth 75 cents a piece. This one's actually in really good condition, especially compared to this one. If you look at those two side by side, there's obviously one that's in good condition and one that's in very poor condition. Are worth about $1 each. So those three bills there, $3. From there, we're moving on to ever decreasing numbers. Here is my 25-cent collection. Again, anything with Sandy on the right, I think we're just going to put to the side for now. Most of these are going to be worth exactly 25 cents. So this is a 1989. Every single one of these is a 1989. There were 8.3 million of them made, and unless they are in extremely fair condition, they're worth 25 cents. The 87s in this series, again, in very fair condition, are worth $1. Extremely fair condition for the 85s is $3. None of these are in that good a condition, so we don't have to worry about that. Those are all worth 25 cents. I do have one Olympic bill in very rough shape. So 25 cent, there were 1.18 million of these, or 1.88 million, of these. And in fair condition, which this would be a stretch, that'd be worth $2. It looks like they are 74s. There were roughly 30 million of those printed, would be worth $2 a piece in fair condition. We're down to the 50 cent, the 50 cent, if you will. 89 50-cent bill. There are 6 million of those made, and again, in extremely fair condition, it's worth $1. $1, and that's not in extremely fair condition, so we don't have to worry about that. We've got the two different 1985 bills, one with just the treasurer and one with the treasurer and president. So the one with just the treasurer is going to be worth $5 in extremely fair condition, which this one is not. And with both, and that one would be worth $2 in extremely fair condition. And again, we'll go to the 74s here for these last two 50-cent bills and see that they are worth $1 or $2 each. All right, so that brings us to the $1 bills. There we go. So the 2004, they don't even split that up. That's just 2002 to 2006. It's all the same thing. They printed 1 million of these, and in perfect condition, it's worth $2.50. This is not in perfect condition, so we don't have to worry about that. So we'll just skip all those Sandy McTires on the right. Here we go. 1992 is worth exactly $2.50 in extremely fair condition. This one is not. It's interesting. So I've got two different 1989s, one with red printing and one with black printing. So here's the 89 with the red printing in decent condition. $1. very fair condition is worth $2. There we go. And then the one with the black printing on it. Yeah, and this one could be up to $2, but it's not that nice a condition. It's got writing on the back of it, so don't need to worry about those so much. 1987, and at best, worth $3. The 1985, and in extremely fair condition, is worth $6, and in this condition, it's worth $1. Which brings us to the last of our $1. So it looks like it would be a 1974. This one is in pretty good condition, I will say. And at best, very fair condition, $4. So I might be able to say that that's a $4 value, but that also might be stretching that a little bit. Which leads me to my very last bill, a $2 Canadian Tire Money bill. It does, I believe, say 1989 on there. And in extremely fair condition would be worth $6. Yeah, so there's a lot more information in here if you are interested in valuing your own Canadian Tire Money. And you want to take a look, I highly suggest picking up one of these numismatic catalogs. It's great fun for an afternoon to go through your Canadian Tire collection and see what's there. So there we go. We'll put all of our Canadian Tire money back into the little Canadian Tire store for safekeeping. Obviously, if I collect any more Canadian Tire money from this point going forward, I'm going to have to build a second location for my Canadian Tire money. But in the meantime and in between time, that seems to store it all right. About $60 face value, and I'd say probably valued at $100 to $150, but let's be honest, the value is in the joy of collecting it and the fun of taking a look through a catalog to see just how much you think it could be worth in an ideal situation. But let's face it, we're not in an ideal situation anymore, Toto. But hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just talking about the value of my Canadian Tire Money collection. I'm Reviewy McReviewface. Make sure you click that subscribe button, and I'll see you next review. So here's the difference. We've got the two different 1985 bills. We've got the two different 1985 bills. One of them with